Hi everyone, so today's video is going to be all of the books that I read in May. Now, May was a very good reading month for me actually, up until like the last week of May because I got sick and I couldn't really read a lot. So in the month of May, I participated in the Asian Readathon. I made a video about all the books I wanted to read for the Asian Readathon, so you can check that out if you don't know which books I wanted to read, but I managed to read almost every single one of them except for one. Because I got sick, I couldn't really finish it, but I'm planning on finishing it this month. So on to the books that I actually did manage to finish in May. I managed to read 13 books. Out of those 13 books, there are 5 mangas or graphic novels that I did read, but that is still quite a lot for me. So yeah, I'm really happy with it. So on to the books that I read in May. I started the month of May with listening to the audiobook for An Empress of Salt, and then listening to the kind of sequel of that story, When the Tiger Came Down the Mountain. I quite enjoyed these books, but I think I would have enjoyed them more if I was physically reading them, because the story was a bit difficult to get into because I was listening to it on an audiobook. But I did really like them. The writing is really beautiful. And if I manage to somehow find these books somewhere in my country, then I will buy them, but I highly doubt I will be able to find them. So I gave both of them 3.5 stars, I think. I liked the first book, An Empress of Salt and Fortune. I liked that one just a little bit more than the second one, just because it was a bit more emotional, I think, and I like emotional books. So yeah. I don't know if I pronounced the title of the first book right when I mentioned it for the first time. I think I might have mispronounced it, but we'll see, I guess. Those were the 2 books I started off the month with. And then I decided to finish listening to The Pretty One, which I started listening to that in April, I think. It's basically a memoir, and it's all about the author's life and her experience, being disabled and all that. I really liked it. It was a bit repetitive at times, and I didn't really understand a lot of the references to like pop songs or religion even. I didn't really understand those because I'm not really that involved in pop culture, and I'm also not a religious person. So during those parts I was a bit confused, but I still really enjoyed it. Again, it was a little bit repetitive, but it was really good, and I highly recommend it, especially to able-bodied people. And then next I decided to reread Heartstopper. I read the first volume a couple months ago. I can't remember when, but I talked about it in a video, and I said that I liked it, but because I kept comparing it to manga, I kept like forgetting how to read it, and I got really confused, and that took away from my enjoyment of reading it. I decided to reread it and read a couple more volumes of it. I read the first 3 volumes, and I enjoyed the second and the third volume a lot more than the first one, I think, because we got past the whole like miscommunication, like awkwardness, because I don't really like reading about that. It makes me really anxious. So I think once we got past that, I enjoyed it a lot more. I'm definitely going to continue this series. I don't know if I'm going to buy the physical copies just because they are quite expensive, and I don't know if I'm going to like it yet because I don't know how it's going to end. And I think I will wait until the ending has been released and I've read it online. Then I will probably, if I like it, then I will probably buy the physical copies. But I'm glad I gave it a second try, and I'm glad I enjoyed it more the second time around. Then I decided to tackle a bit more of my Asian Readathon TBR, which include a lot of audiobooks. As I mentioned in my May TBR, I decided to listen to Love from A to Z, which I was very excited for because it includes a disabled main character who is also the love interest, which that doesn't happen a lot. A lot of times the disabled characters are just like side characters who never really fall in love with someone or are the love interest because, ableism is still very much a thing. Also in like the book industry. I'm glad that this character was disabled and also one of the main characters and the love interest. This book had just like great representation all around. In my opinion, obviously, I can't speak for like Muslim people because the main characters are Muslim. I'm not Muslim. I can't speak about the representation, but I have read from a lot of Muslim people that they really liked the representation. So yeah, this book, according to me, it has great representation. I really enjoyed it. I really loved the characters, and I also really enjoyed the ending. I love that they didn't really leave it as like an open ending, like are they gonna get together or not. I don't really enjoy endings like that, so I'm really glad that it wrapped up quite nicely. I also really want a physical copy of this book, but once again, it's going to be really difficult to find for like a cheap price because it isn't that popular. But yeah, I did really enjoy it. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. I don't know if I've set the star ratings for the other books that I've mentioned so far. I'm very forgetful today, it seems, but yeah, I really enjoyed it. Highly recommend it. Then next I read this book, which I've already mentioned this in my May TBR. I'm not going to say the name of this because I keep mispronouncing it and I don't want to accidentally mispronounce things. I was not expecting it to start the way that it did, but I really enjoyed that. I really liked reading it. I actually almost bought a copy in a bookstore yesterday because for some reason, I've already mentioned this in my June TBR video. For some reason, bookstores in my country suddenly have a lot more like books in English, and this book was one of them. I didn't buy it because it was a bit expensive, but yeah, I do want to buy it someday because I really enjoyed it. Now, I say enjoyed it very lightly because the ending really pissed me off, not gonna lie, not because it was bad or anything, but just because it was so realistic. This book is basically about a woman who is suffering from mental health issues after basically a lifetime of sexism kind of like catching up to her when she has a baby. And yeah, the ending of this book is, like I've already said, very realistic in the fact that it ends with a man being sexist. Like, it's a necessary ending because it kind of shows like, hey, this book didn't solve sexism. Like, it's very much still happening, even if, you know, a man realizes the amount of sexism that goes on in the world, he's still gonna end up being sexist, you know, if he doesn't actively try to change. So yeah, that was a bit like annoying to read, but it is like a necessary ending. As much as I hated it, I also kind of loved it because it kind of like showed like the whole point of the book basically. Yeah, I really enjoyed this book. I want to buy it physically if it isn't so expensive, but yeah, I highly recommend it. So now we're actually finally getting into some physical books so I can hold them up finally, because I haven't been holding up anything this entire time and it feels a bit weird, and it makes me aware of the fact that my physical TBR didn't really shrink this month, no matter how much I read. So that's a bit disappointing, and I really need to start reading the physical books that I own. But the next book that I read, I actually did a reading vlog for it. I don't know if when I post this it will already be posted, but yeah, that book is Everything I Never Told You. I picked this book for the Asian Readathon for the prompt, a book by an Asian author in your favorite genre, and I chose as a self-made genre a book that will make me cry, and oh boy, did it live up to that promise. I look like an absolute mess at the end of the vlog that I did for this video. I really don't want to post that footage because my face is like swollen and it's a mess. It's honestly one of those times that I'm really happy with the fact that I wear a face mask when I film, because you didn't want to see it. You really didn't. But yeah, I really enjoyed this book. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Like I said, it lived up to the promise of making me bawl my eyes out at 8 a.m. in the morning when I finished it. yeah, I really enjoyed it. I don't really know what else to say about it because my brain kind of shuts off whenever I think about how I felt when I read it. So all I can say is I really liked it. I liked the representation in it, and the writing was really good. And I now want to buy and read every single one of the books that this author has written. I do own the other book that she's written, which is Little Fires Everywhere. I really want to read that one now, just to see if it emotionally destroys me as much as this book. So yeah, if you haven't read it, go read it. And after I finished Everything I Never Told You, I needed some light-hearted things to read because I was doing a 24-hour readathon when I read Everything I Never Told You, and I had a couple more hours left. So I decided to read the first and second volume of The Demon Prince. These mangas were basically like a cover buy. Well, this one was a cover buy because I saw it in a store in my country and I really liked the cover, and I was like, I have no idea what this is about, but it's pretty and I want it. So yeah, I decided to read it. I really liked it, so I decided to buy the second book, and then I reread this one to read this one. Yeah, I just needed something light-hearted, even though this one wasn't actually that light-hearted, to be honest. Like, there was a certain point where I almost wanted to cry, but you know, I guess that day was just a day where I cried a lot, I guess. But yeah, I really enjoyed these. I do want to continue this series, but it's not like a priority. Then the last physical book that I read in the month of May is Watch Over Me. I decided to read this book on a whim. This book was also kind of a cover buy, but also because I really enjoyed the author's other book that she wrote, which I think was called We Are Okay. I might be wrong on that. Very strange that I don't remember the title of that one, even though I loved it so much. But my memory is really bad today, so don't mind it. Yeah, I decided to read this one. I did really like it. It wasn't as scary as I was expecting it to be because it was said to be about like ghosts. And because of that, I was a bit hesitant to pick this up because I don't really like scary stories. But luckily enough, it wasn't that scary. I wasn't actually scared during any part of this book, to be honest, which is good because I don't like being scared. But yeah, first of all, the cover of this book is really pretty. Once again, I'm a sucker for pretty covers. So this book wasn't really that scary. The concept of it is quite scary, that your past will physically haunt you in the form of a ghost. Like, that's scary. Like, that disturbs me. But yeah, I liked it. I didn't enjoy it as much as her other book, but I'm glad I gave it a try. Then the last book that I finished in the month of May is actually a book that wasn't on my TBR, and I decided to read it because I saw someone write in a review for Like a Love Story, which was on my TBR for the Asian Readathon. I saw someone comment in a review that they read How to Survive a Plague first, and that made Like a Love Story a lot more intense to read. And so I decided to read How to Survive a Plague, and that book is like, the audiobook is like 24 hours long, so it's really, really long. And because it was so long, I didn't manage to finish the last book that I had to read for the Asian Readathon, which was Like a Love Story. But I'm still glad I read How to Survive a Plague because it was really good and really informational, and I learned so much more about the AIDS crisis, about how AIDS was handled when it first started killing people. I'm so glad that I read it. I feel like this book would be really good to read during Pride Month, so during June, because yes, it's a very dark part of queer history, but it's a part of history that you have to know about. And especially as someone who, you know, wasn't alive during that time, I don't even live in America, which is where the book takes place. But because I wasn't alive during that time, I feel like I have to educate myself on how awful it was to live during that time, because obviously homophobia is still very much a thing now, but it was so much worse back then. And I can't imagine what it must have been like to live during that time, to know that people would gladly let you die just because they don't like who you love. You know, the book was really painful to listen to at certain times, especially because they introduced you to all of these characters in the beginning, which are real people. Obviously, they actually were alive, and so they introduced you to every single one of them, and you just slowly see them like deteriorate and like die, and that's really painful because obviously, like, unlike with fiction books, like, you know that they're not real. With this book, you know that all of these people existed. There's photos of them, you know, and like I said, it's a really painful book to listen to. It's the reason why it took me so long to listen to the full book, because it was 24 hours long, but also because it's a really difficult book to read. You know, it takes a lot out of you emotionally, but like I've already said, it is kind of a necessary book in my opinion. So yeah, I'm not gonna say I enjoyed it, because frankly I didn't, but it's not about enjoyment with this book. It's just about, you know, reading it and educating yourself. I highly recommend it to people, not in the same way that I recommend other books, but in a way of read it if you want to know more about what happened when AIDS first started killing people. So that was all of the books that I read in May. Like I already said in the beginning of this video, I had a really great reading month, and I hope that will continue into June as well. Yeah, I'm really glad that I read all of these books. I do, like I've already said, I do want to tackle more of my physical TBR, because I own a lot of books that I haven't read yet. But yeah, hopefully I'll be able to do that in the coming months. And I guess I'll update you guys whether or not I'll actually be able to actually lower the amount of physical books that I own that I haven't read yet. I think it's currently at like 80 or 90 maybe, which is a lot. But to be fair, I do own like 200 books, so it's not the majority of my bookshelf that I haven't read, which is good. Thank you for watching this video. As I post this, it will be Pride Month, so happy Pride Month. I hope that every single person who belongs to the LGBT plus community, I hope you have a great month. I know it can be like a difficult month for us, because I do actually belong in the LGBT plus community. I know it can be difficult for us because of the amount of homophobia and transphobia and acephobia that goes on. I know it's difficult to deal with, but I still hope that you have a nice Pride Month. Thank you for watching this video. Bye.